in God, right? It's not like that.
Mm.
So that would seem to be
No.
disanalogy.
We're not talking about belief because belief would entail irrational justification, right?
Sorry. No, belief doesn't entail irrational justification.
Well, in the context in which you were asking for evidence about a claim, it does, yes.
I was asking what distinguishes a basic belief from a properly basic belief, and you adduced the criterion of self-evidence, and I asked you what you meant by self-evidence, and what you said was that self-evidence is something that we necessarily believe is true, like that
Mm-hmm.
we exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the case of our own existence, right, I take it that it's constitutive of the belief that we exist, that we do exist, right? In order to
Right.
have a belief that one exists, one has to exist, right? So it's a constitutive relation, right?
Right.
But
And
I
the way
don't
it's
see that the
axiomatic,
belief
yes.
that God exists is like that, right?
Right. Well, let me get to that. Okay. So it's kind of deep, right? And I'm still working on this, but I've come to a little bit of an understanding of this idea. Okay. So what I'm thinking about, whether someone's raised non-religious or religious, whatever bias is introduced at a young age, right? I think we have certain beliefs, such as, for instance, that we exist. Like we never philosophically at a young age tried to determine whether we do exist or not. We just assume it to be true because it seems as if we do, right? There's never a point really in which we, unless we intentionally try to engage in that topic, that we try to doubt our own existence, right? Um, and so I think that in a way applies to not a belief in God, right, but an assumption that there is something, because a belief in God would entail, in a way, you're right, Joshua, specificity, right? So if you're raised in a religion, right, that is to say that there's a doctrine and a theological understanding that follows from the belief in God. But if we're talking about God aside from religion, just as a general concept, right, it's very, very complicated. And I think in order for us to delve into that, right, we must have a basic criterion, and that criterion would be that it is something greater than humans, or that of ourselves, right? So whether you believe that it coexists in nature, right? Some religions believe there are entities within nature that have their own powers, right? Or some religions believe there are entities that are supernatural, right? Um, Whatever the take is, that there's energy or spirits, or there is more to our physical reality that we perceive. And I think this is, in a sense, a tricky word of belief. I wouldn't call it a properly basic belief. Is very similar to an axiom. Like I would even consider the axiom like a properly basic belief, the belief um that the world wasn't created last Thursday, right? As a properly basic belief, right? And so it's not something we're consciously
Why
aware
would
of
that
as an axiom,
why would my belief that the world was not created last Thursday be a properly basic belief?
because it correlates,
Why would it be? I
or
mean,
sorry, it
I'm sorry.
comports.
Why
Uh,
would it be a properly basic belief?
uh,
I'm sorry.
right. So I believe because it's self-evident, right, in the sense that we don't seem to question it.
It's
We can,
self-evident that the world was not created last Thursday?
yes,
Really?
due to
See,
our past
I don't know
perceived,
I don't know what you mean. See, that's why I asked you what you meant by
because our past perceived
self-evidence.
experiences
I,
and our
I,
memories
I
don't.
offered a account of what self-evidence could mean based on your example, right? Because your example was that um, our belief that we exist is self-evident, right? Now,
Yes.
I offered an analysis, right, of what's going on in that case, right, which was to
Hmm.
give a constitutive account, right? The term incorrigibility is sometimes used in philosophy to
Yes.
describe propositions of that kind, right? So the
Hmm.
idea is that the belief is true in virtue of having the belief, right?
Right.
But see, I don't see how that the universe was not created last Thursday, or the proposition that God exists are propositions of that kind. So that straightforwardly seems to show that if the criterion is self-evidence, right, either that's not what self-evidence is, which is to say something that's constitutively true if believed, or it's just a mistake to say that those beliefs are self-evident and therefore are properly basic, if that's the criterion
Do you,
of proper basicality, right?
when you
That's
say
not
constituent, do you mean necessarily? Like, for instance, in order for me to believe the universe exists, the universe would need to exist? Is that what you mean?
yeah,
Right? Like, in order for it's self-evident to me that I exist because in order for me to have that belief, I have to exist, apparently.
yes, that's right.
Okay. So that is an example. I don't think that's the criterion, right? I don't think
Well,
that is alone the contrary.
that's what I'm trying to get at, right? Is what
Right.
is the criterion, right?
So
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 if your
the reason that
criterion is self-evidence and self-evidence doesn't mean constitutive, I don't know
no.
what you mean by it.
Oh, okay. So what I mean by it is that it's in a way. I mean, when I think of the term self-evident, I think it's not evidence in which comes externally from our own uh, justification, right, or justified processes. That it's essentially linked to our axioms in the way that it is rationally justified, but without the type of evidence we need to have beliefs of other sorts, right, that would come from our axioms ultimately. Rather, it seems to be true
Okay,
simply on
so
the fact of our being,
let's
and
try
part
to
of our
get this
being is
straight. Let's try to get this straight. So you're saying that self-evidence is a form of non-inferential justification?
well, it's not evidence that we accumulate from outside of ourselves, right? That we then take in and try to justify a belief from that.
All right. Let me try to ask a similar question. Is
Mhm.
self-evidence a criterion of justification?
Well, I think self-evidence in and of itself is self-justification, is
So
self-rational
you think
justification.
self-evident beliefs are justified, right? That's the idea.
Well, no, I think a probably basic belief is. I mean, I'm not gonna say all self-evident beliefs are.
All right. So
So self-evident,
that's just making me more
rational.
confused. All right.
Okay.
So
Let me try to explain
a
in
basic
this
belief.
example.
I take it that a basic belief is a belief that isn't justified by other beliefs, right?
Right. So I think an example of a basic belief we might have.
Well,
Right.
it doesn't matter. So now we want
Well,
to
well,
distinguish a
well, you
basic.
want to hear you want to know a distinction, so I'll try to give
No,
you
no,
one.
no, no,
Okay.
no. Let me be clear as to what it is I'm asking. So a basic belief is a belief that's not justified by other beliefs, right? So a fortiori, it must be the case that a properly basic belief is not justified by other beliefs, right? Because it's a type of basic belief, right?
Right. And what makes it proper is the sense that it is self-evidently true and rationally justified
Okay.
by
So let's just get
yeah.
this clear. So you're saying that a properly basic belief is not justified by other beliefs, but is nonetheless justified. Is that the idea?
Yeah, so in that way it's similar to an axiom,
Now, is
an
that
axiomatic belief.
well? No, I are axioms justified?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, so are you talking about non-inferential justification?
I believe so, yes.
So I don't understand what non-inferential justification is. I just don't get
Okay.
it.
Okay.
What
So
does it mean? What does it mean for something to be justified, if not by an inference?
because in order for us to rationally justify any other beliefs that we have, it ultimately comes back down to our axiomatic beliefs, which cannot be rationally justified in the same way. Because in order to rationally justify them, we'd have to make a key base fundamental assumptions, which would be our axioms, right? So if one of my axioms is that the universe exists, and I say, well, I believe a dog exists. How do I know that dogs exist? Well, because I believe I exist. In order to make that in order to sense the dog existing, right? And to use my reason to believe that, in order for me to exist, I assume that I exist in the universe. In order for that to whole take place, I have to assume the universe exists. Can I justify that ultimately? I don't believe I can, but I assume it to be true.
Oh, wait a
Okay,
minute. So now you're saying that it's not justified, an axiom. I thought before you
but
were saying
it's
axioms were
justified, but not in
justified.
the same way we rationally justify the belief that a dog exists. right?
Okay, but then that's not an answer to the question, right? I'm simply trying to understand what it could mean for a proposition to be justified non-inferentially.
Because we must make. Do you again? Is what I'm saying about an axiomatic belief? Am I? Is that what's confusing to you?
If by axiom you mean a belief that lacks justification, then there's no problem, right? If you say it has a justification, I take it you're saying that there's a way you can justify a belief without an inference, and I just don't understand what that is.
Yeah, sure. So again, in philosophy, very, very common for an axiomatic belief to be referenced as justified, right? But in the sense that it's self-evidently true. Now, it is conceded that you cannot rationally
Right.
justify it
If you take up,
with an
if you're
inference.
talking about self-evidence, right? I offer
Yes.
a possible account of what self-evidence could mean.
Okay.
It
Let,
would
let me
make
just give you
sense,
an
right?
example, maybe, because okay.
Well, you gave an example, right? But that example was one in which it seemed like what self-evidence was, it was the idea that it was constitutively true, and you're denying that
I
that's
mean, you just made that up. I didn't really. I mean, I don't think that's always the case.
you don't think
It
it's
could be the case.
constitutive. You don't think that it's constitutively true that if I believe that I exist, that I do exist?
No, I'm saying that is, but it's not always the case to be a properly basic belief, right?
No, you don't understand. I asked you, right, what your criterion was for proper basicality, and you said self-evidence.
Right. But you then said,
And then,
well, does it have to
then
be constituent? And I
just
said,
a
not
minute,
always.
just a minute. And then I said, okay, so what's an example of something you think is self-evident? And you said
Right.
the belief that we exist, right? But if we look
Right.
at the belief that we exist, right, the reason why it appears that there's a justification for that belief is because it's an incorrigible proposition, which is to say that
Yes.
it's um it's true in virtue of being believed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you said no,
Well,
that's not what you mean by self-evidence, right? Now, I
no,
take it that
it's
what
an
you mean,
example, but what I'm saying is that doesn't have to be everything that is self-evident doesn't have to align with like with a necessary. For instance, it doesn't have to be strictly limited to the proposition that the universe exists or the proposition that I exist. In that way, it's constituent, right?
look, if
But that's
somebody
not the
wants to
only
say,
criteria. That's just
if
a
somebody, you're not,
example of a
look,
self-evident
you're,
belief.
this is not helping. If somebody wants to say that incorrigible propositions, which is to say propositions that are constitutively true,
Mm-hmm.
right, are not inferentially justified, but nonetheless justified, I
Mm-hmm.
think I could go along with that, right? Because those
Right. Right.
propositions, at least, are necessarily true, right?
Right.
But you're saying that incorrigibility is not exhaustive of the category of self-evidence,
Right.
right? And so there are other kinds of
Yes.
non-inferential justifications.
Yes.
And I'm just saying I don't have any idea what that could mean.
Sure. Well, again, I was trying to give you an example, but I think you went off on a little bit of a tangent. Okay. So when I said the example of I believe the world was not created last Thursday or 5 minutes ago, whatever you want to use as an example. Okay. That is because I believe that my past perceived experiences and memory existed in a time past 5 minutes ago, right? That my reality, can I ultimately justify and prove that? No, because it could be true that I live in a simulation or the matrix, whatever, okay? And that I was programmed to have these illusions of memory that was, existed 20 something years ago. But yet, I believe it to be true. Why do I believe it to be true? Because I believe that I exist, right? Do you see what I'm saying? It draws back. It's a
No,
properly basic
I
belief.
don't see what you're
It's
saying.
justified because I have no reason to doubt it.
I don't at all see what you're saying, right? I
Okay.
see that you've cited examples of intuitions which are probably very firmly held, right? Which at least um, causally dispose one to believe things, right, that are very strongly held, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
can see that there's belief. I can see that there are cases where there are intuitions that dispose one strongly to believe something, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't see how that's in any way a justification for the belief.
I'm sorry, were you asking me what a properly basic belief, or are you trying to tell me what a properly basic belief
No.
is? I'm a little confused at this point. Are you still there?
I'm asking you what you mean by a belief that's non-inferentially justified.
Yes, I'm trying to
That
give you an
if
example.
by non-inferentially justified, you don't merely mean incorrigible, right? And what you gave me was an example that, as far as I could tell, only amounted to there being intuitions that induced strong attachment to some belief causally, right?
If I,
Which
it,
I don't see as in any way justificatory, right? If I look at
okay,
that example, I don't see anything justificatory about that at all. So I don't see how that example is helpful at all in you showing how there's such a thing as non-inferential justification.
sure, but you agree that it's not inferential, correct? That example.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so yet if I pose that to you, would you doubt that the world was created 5 minutes ago? Or if I say the world was created 5 minutes ago, would you say it could be true, or would you say I doubt that?
I might say I doubt it, but I don't see how you've provided an example of
Well,
justification.
why would you say that you doubt that versus I don't know, I'm agnostic towards it?
I don't think I could offer. Wait, why? I could give you a
Yeah.
causal explanation why, but couldn't give you a justification.
So you wouldn't say that a belief that the world was not created 5 minutes ago, rather existed from when you believed to start existing. That is simply an unjustifiable belief, and that you shouldn't hold that belief.
I'm not saying just unjustifiable beliefs are beliefs you shouldn't hold. I'm not making that claim. I'm simply saying that there are beliefs which one has and can have, right, which it's not irrational to hold, which nonetheless one can't offer a justification for.
Right. It's essentially the majority of our axiomatic beliefs.
Sorry. Well, I thought we were talking about justification, right?
Yeah.
I,
Can you
what I
justify
was
that the
sorry,
universe
sorry.
exists?
What I was saying is that you seem to be invoking a distinction between basic beliefs and properly basic
Well, no,
beliefs.
I haven't given you that distinction yet because you said it's irrelevant earlier.
Just a minute, right? You were talking. I'll recapitulate the dialectic, okay? So you invoked properly basic beliefs, right?
Hmm.
And so what I wanted to understand was what those could possibly be,
Yes.
because I take it that basic beliefs are unproblematic, right? They're simply
No, they're very
beliefs.
problematic.
By
They,
problematic,
they, they, they
I mean,
can be problematic,
so
yes.
no, I don't think you understand what I mean by problematic. What I mean by problematic is there's no difficulty in giving an analysis of what they are, right?
I think there could
Or,
be.
well, okay, so let's talk about basic beliefs. All I
Yes.
understand it because
You,
I
you
thought we
asked
were
for a
on the
distinction,
I
and I
thought we
tried to
were
give
on
you
the
that, and you said, no, it's
sorry.
irrelevant.
I thought we were on the same page about basic beliefs, but now it sounds like you're saying we're not on the same page. So what I said a basic belief is a belief that's not justified by other beliefs, right? Now, are you saying you now disagree with that characterization?
Well, no, well, I think that could be true, right? A basic belief is, let's break down what this means. Basic meaning fundamental belief, okay? But what would make a basic belief proper is that in the same way that it's unjustified, or in a way unjustified in the sense that how we rationally justify our other beliefs, right?
You're
We both
going too
agree.
fast for me, right?
Okay, so
So
a basic
so
belief and a properly basic
just a
belief.
minute. I just want to get clear, okay? Are we agreed that what a basic belief is a belief that's not justified by other beliefs, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Both that and
Now,
properly basic beliefs.
let's
Yes.
okay. Now, a properly basic belief, I take it as a special class, subclass
Yes.
of the
Yes.
class of basic beliefs, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I take it that the propriety of properly basic beliefs is some type of non-inferential justification. Is that right?
Sorry. What?
I take it that the proper
You just cut out.
Angstreich cut out. You cut out.
Sorry. I take it that the property of propriety of properly basic beliefs is the property of them being non-inferentially justified, right? That's what it means to say belief is properly basic, is it does have a justification, it's just not justified inferentially, right?
Right. What makes it exactly. What makes it proper
Okay. All right, let's
is that we
stop
believe
there.
that it is justified.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Now what we need to do is try to understand what non-inferential justification is, right?
Mhm.
Now, what you did was give me an example of how there are intuitions that dispose one to strongly believe something.
Intuitions.
Right? Yeah, intuitions that
What?
strongly that dispose one to strongly believe some proposition, right? And the problem is that I don't see that that provides any justification at all. Right?
Past
So
perceived.
if that example is being invoked as an example of non-inferential justification, I'm just not seeing the justification there. So I don't see how that's clarifying your case.
Because you're trying to look for a justification in the same way that we justify our other beliefs, but we've already conceded that this is not a justification that is similar to how we justify other beliefs. It's a different kind of justification, right? That's what we're trying to make a distinction between.
What you offer.
Will you agree that people can be strongly disposed to intuit things, and those intuitions can be unjustified, right?
I don't get what's intuitive about a past perceived experience believing that to be true.
I'm just saying that you agree that there are things that people can believe, that they're disposed to believe very strongly, but are nonetheless not justified.
How would they not be justified? Can you give me what do you mean by that?
What if I was disposed to strongly believe that there's a fucking 8-headed zombie somewhere in the universe?
Mm. Right. And so what does the justification come in? What is that process?
He's saying
the point is that it's just intuited. I just believe it.
Yeah,
right.
You wouldn't say
that is not possibly justified in its own way.
You can justify it to yourself. Yeah, you can have.
Yeah, that's exactly my point.
What the?
I said it's
Wait,
self-evidently true.
What are you talking about? We're asking. Look, we're just asking if it's not inferentially justified. How would you justify it by appeal to something other than an inference? That's what we're asking. So if you're saying yes, there's a way to do it, tell us the way.
Right. There is no process. You're correct in a way. It is intuitive. It's self-evidently true. There is no process. That's the whole point, that there's no process in it.
It doesn't make sense
appears to be true.
It doesn't make sense to keep repeating that something is self-evidently true.
You're asking for something I can't give an answer to.
Let me just finish. It doesn't make sense to keep repeating that something is self-evidently true.
Yeah.
If you don't have an analysis of what that means, right? Now, I proposed an analysis of that, right? Which was maybe self-evident means incorrigible, which is to say constitutively true, right? And you said, no, that might be a type of self-evident belief, but it was a larger class than the class of incorrigible propositions, the class of self-evident propositions, right?
Yeah.
So we've agreed that what you mean by self-evident, right? I take it that's synonymous with non-inferential justification, right?
Yes, it's a different type of justification.
Fine.
Yes.
A different type meaning non-inferential as opposed to inferential, right?
Yes.
So you can't just keep repeating self-evident, right? Because what we're trying to understand is what it means for something to be non-inferentially justified. And if you say it's non-inferentially justified by virtue of being self-evident, that's not illuminating, because we're understanding.
Can you think of a way?
Sorry, we're understanding that what you mean by self-evident is that it's non-inferentially justified.
Either you're not understanding the implications of what I'm saying, or you're just trying to ball bust me. Okay, you're asking for a process of something that is very complicated.
You need to be more clear about what it means for something to be self-evident. You need to tell us. Okay.
It's
Yeah, I've
irreducible.
given
It's
multiple
irreducible.
examples.
We're
If
not
you
Examples
want me,
that
interested.
if
We,
you want me to
we've
try to
already
run through a
talked
process,
about
I
your
don't know the
examples.
process of self-evident
Look,
beliefs.
the examples you gave were no good, right?
How,
All you
how
did
weren't
was,
they?
sorry, I told you how. What we pointed out was all they did was show cases in which you have intuitions that dispose you to strongly believe something. But there's nothing justificatory about that relation, right? So it's not a good
Past
example.
past perceived experiences and memories that are believed to be extended past 5 minutes ago. Okay.
Self-evidence is irreducible.
That
Okay.
something that is, listen, you're asking me to explain a process and how we justify something non-inferential that I claim to be self-evidently true. I don't know how anyone could run. I don't know how. I don't know. I don't know if there's anyone who exists who knows how that process works.
I can do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
You want me to attempt it?
Yeah.
Okay, so something, usually what people mean when they say that something's self-evident is that the denial of it is self-contradictory. That's basically it.
You know
Like,
what's important?
that's it.
By the
So
way.
if are you saying that the belief that you're talking
We
about
don't think of
are
these
belie-
things, though. We don't
are
justify it due
no
to its
are you saying, okay,
self-contradiction. We believe it
okay,
without
so
thinking about believing it.
so the belief, for example, in the laws of thought, one could say are like those are the laws of thought are self-evident because the moment you try to deny them, you contradict yourself. So that is
No.
one example of that. Yes.
No, I don't think so. What I mean by
Okay,
self-evident is when we are young, we don't think in the way we do now. We don't have conversations about this. Yet we believe things. We don't
So
try to
something that's
justify it in any way.
self-evident
We
is
don't even know that we hold these assumptions.
so
Right?
something
Yet we
that's
believe it with
self-evident is
conviction.
something that's self-evident, something that people don't think about.
It's rationally justified as a belief that we have. And once we come to know or study about our axiomatic beliefs or our properly basic beliefs, we understand why they are self-evidently true.
Okay,
We can
why is
try
it self-evidently true?
because it comports with our reality, it comports with our experiences, it comports
If
with our
it comports
existence
with if
within.
it's true,
Let me
okay,
finish.
sure. Go ahead. My bad.
It comports with our existence in physical reality. That we do not perceive it not to be the case because there is no thought in which creates doubt of it, right?
Okay. If it is true because it comports to our reality, then that seems like it's inferentially justified rather than non-inferentially justified. So you're confusing me again. So is it true? Is it true in view of the fact that it comports to reality, or is it true in fact of in view of some other kind of justification than the fact that it comports to reality, or the fact that it's contingent upon some other beliefs that are held to be true? Because you're contradicting yourself. I thought that these beliefs were not justified like other beliefs, yet it comports to our reality. It's exactly the justification of other beliefs, though.
No, I'm trying to listen. I'm not trying to justify. Again, these beliefs that we have, we may not even ever know about the assumptions that we have or the properly basic beliefs that we have. Yet we believe them to be true. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that still has not explained. Okay, but why are they true, buddy? Why are they true, buddy? That's the
Talking about it
question.
now and saying, "Oh, are they true or are they not true? Are they inferential, non-inferential?" That doesn't matter, okay? Unless you are going to deny that we believe in things that we don't even try to go through any process of justification for in the way that we do our other beliefs,
So
rather they are
how can we tell?
self-evidently true and rationally justified in a different way.
How can
Right?
but you keep saying a different way, and you keep saying that like they're true
Because-
even though we don't. No, you keep saying that they're true even though we don't think about them. But I'm trying to find out why they are true. Why are they true if we
I don't know.
think about them?
I can't explain that. I don't
so you
know
can't
why.
explain it. That's fine. That's okay. You can
You
do
know
that.
how
You can say that you can't
consciousness
explain
works
it.
and intuition? No, it's a difficult subject. I'd have to look more into it.
So are things that are properly based, or are things that are self-just or self-evident things that one holds intuitively to be true? Is that the definition you're going to go by?
I'd like to just give it I was trying to make a distinction earlier. Okay, an example I can think of a basic belief would be if I believed that the sun was 93 million miles away, yet I never was taught that. I never read it in any book. Okay, I never had any so on called reason to believe that. Yeah, I fundamentally believe that to be true. That would be a basic belief. okay, that I have.
Yeah.
And it is fundamental to my view of the world.
Right.
Okay. Now that could easily be false, and I could probably prove that to be false.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What makes a basic belief proper is that in the way that the belief that the sun is 93 million miles away without any reason to believe that or evidence that's necessary to believe that, or anyone even telling me, right, that it is such a conviction, and we believe it to be 100% the case, because simply of our existence, and simply because of the way we reason about the world and how we perceive the world and how we experience the world, right? That we believe that in order for us to, when we start developing cognition, right, we start developing memories, right, and we start learning how to reason, right, and how to form. We assume we exist. We didn't. When I was 6 years old, I didn't say, "Do I exist?" I never questioned it, right? And so in this way, right, a properly basic belief, it's a basic belief, a fundamental belief that is proper and rationally justified to yourself to hold.
Okay. So you've given the example of I exist as a properly basic belief, seems to fall into what Angstreich was talking about earlier with something that's called an incorrigible belief. Something
and I gave another example that's not an incorrigible belief.
Okay, then like what?
I said the belief that, for instance, the belief that there's other minds outside of our own, or the belief that the world wasn't created 5 minutes ago.
How are those properly basic rather than merely basic? I'm not getting it.
Because a basic belief that the sun is 93 million miles away, it may or may not be true, just as there might be other minds outside of our own, may or may not be true. And we wouldn't justify that because, like you were saying, Angstreich, because we exist and it's through necessity, but rather it is so overwhelmingly true to us based on our experience that it's different in that way than the sun. Hold on. It's different in that way with the distance of the sun, because the distance of a sun could easily be wrong, and it wouldn't affect us.
Distance of the sun is not a basic belief, right?
It could be a fundamental belief that we have, that the sun is 93 million miles away.
Okay, but
now, if somebody had it.
Now,
right,
if I learned that it wasn't,
it can't be the case that what makes one justified rather than the other is because it's strongly held, right? Because that's not a justification.
Listen, if I was wrong about the sun being 93 million miles away, it's like, wow, I totally I believed that was true, right? That was a basic belief of mine. The reason why, what makes it properly basic, if somehow I was justified that there are not other minds outside myself, rather, or that the world was created 5 minutes ago and I'm in a simulation, that changes the whole fucking game. It's properly, and do you understand why it's proper now? What the distinction is?
No, you have not. All you've given is an effect.
Any justification whatsoever for the belief.
All you've given is basically saying, like, the difference between the sun being, like, your belief about the sun being proven wrong and your belief about other minds being proven wrong. So far as, like, the distinction. Hold on.
I don't see that.
Hold on a second. The difference between them just seems to be that one is held more passionately than the other. That's
passionately. No, it's our experience of our existence. My experience.
If it's based on experience,
the distance of the
if
sun
it's
being
based on, if it's based on your experience,
minds of our own is extremely correlative to my fucking worldview. Right? If I was to be wrong about that,
if it's based on your experience, then it is justified inferentially by looking at how your experience works, making a hypothesis about, like, just like being based on either that or your intuition. So it's either that it's based on, like, our understanding of like scientific knowledge, or it's based on some intuition. In either case, I don't see, like, how they're special.
You don't see how it, because you can't go any further than that. That is your assumption, right? That is your belief that you cannot justify.
Going any further just means that it's basic, right?
Yeah.
So we're not interested in that property. We know that what you mean by properly basic is that it's basic. That's unproblematic. There's nothing controversial about a basic belief. The part we're not understanding is where you're getting a justification for those beliefs.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, isn't the justification just like when you commit to an axiom, right? Like, you've committed something
to be axiomatic, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I don't see
you're
what's
like,
Most
problematic
people
about
would
what
be
I'm saying.
most people would be comfortable with saying that their axioms are not justified. That's the difference. Jason thinks that there's some justification for them, and it's
No,
just very puzzling.
right.
It's just very puzzling because there's no he has not given an example of how they're justified in any single
Yeah,
sense.
because listen, I don't see how you're not getting this. If it's not justified in the way that we fucking empirically verify anything else, any of our other beliefs.
We understand that. We understand that
Okay,
there's no
great.
inference. We've been over that a million times, right? We're
If
asking
I'm to say
what
that
we're
I hold a
asking.
belief,
Sorry. We're asking what does it mean, right, for a proposition to be justified, if not by an inference, right? What does that even mean?
And if not, if it's incorrigible, like
Okay.
And if it's not incorrigible, what does it even mean to say that it's a justified belief? We don't understand what you're talking about. Does anybody understand what he's talking about?
I'm not
He's
understanding.
He's saying, I don't understand how you could not be getting this. Is there a single person in the room who
think about what you're
talking
saying.
about?
If
Is there
you
one
say,
person,
if
sorry,
you say,
sorry. Is there one person here
I don't
besides
care.
Jsut who understands what the fuck he's talking about? Because we've been over this now for what, a half hour, over and over and over again.
Okay,
We
can you
don't
shut up now?
we don't understand what the fuck you're talking about. So just explain to us.
Well, then stop talking to me if you want.
What does it even fucking mean, right?
Yeah.
To say that a belief is non-inferentially justified. Don't tell us, I don't understand how you're not getting this, when there's not a single fucking person in the room here who knows what the fuck you're talking about. Just tell us what the fuck you mean by that.
I've already told you what I mean. If I am to say I hold a belief it is the foundation for all of my other beliefs, and I say that is ultimately unjustified.
Just means
Can you stop fucking interrupting me?
I'm interrupting you because you're not answering the question. Okay, so when I ask you the question,
oh my God,
what do you mean by a
axiomatic beliefs are the foundational beliefs
Let me
that we
explain
form every reason from to hold any other belief.
When I
you understand
say,
that?
What do you mean by a non-inferentially justified belief? I'm not asking you to tell me that it's foundational, because to say that it's foundational is merely to say that it's basic. And we've been over it a million times now, right? That we're not interested in the idea of its basicality. We're interested in the idea of its propriety, right?
Right.
So just tell us, what does it mean for something to be non-inferentially justified?
Okay. Let me ask you a question. I'm assuming you have axiomatic beliefs, correct?
Yeah.
How can you
and
not?
would you say that you can justify these beliefs, Jack?
No, not if they're axiomatic.
Great. So you wouldn't say in any way they are self-evidently true.
I'd only say that they were self-evidently true if they were if they were constitutively true. Otherwise, I don't know what the term means.
As in incorrigible, right?
So basically what you're saying is if you don't hold a belief that is necessary to hold based on your assumption, listen, it's like saying, I assume that I exist, right? But that belief
that's incorrigible.
But that belief comes from the assumption that I exist to have that belief, but yet I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if I can have a belief without me existing. I assume that to be the case. It's ultimately a circular assumption.
No, the belief that you exist is incorrigible. It's not anything other than that.
So you're saying it's impossible to have a belief if you don't exist.
We've already been over this, right? We said that you've agreed multiple times now that by self-evidence, you don't merely mean...
We're getting somewhere with this now.
Because there are some beliefs that could be self-evident that are not constitutively true, which is to say incorrigible.
Okay. Incorrigibility, right? When we talk about through necessity, we believe it, right? And that is justified in its own way.
That's not what we're talking about.
We were talking about that at one point.
It's really pragmatically necessary, right? We're saying it's true in virtue of the fact that it's believed.
Yeah, that's incorrigible.
Right. Because
that's type 1 incorrigible.
In order for us to believe that the universe exists, right, there must be a universe that we exist in to have that belief, right?
Yeah.
But how do we know any of that's true?
What do you mean, how do we know that it's true? It's
how do we know? How do we know that we need to exist to have a belief?
It's incorrigible.
You can keep saying that. It's not
But
justified.
no.
Wait, so now
okay.
you're denying that. Now you're denying that incorrigibility is justification. You're just contradicting yourself,
No, I'm
right?
not. How
Before
do you know we
said,
can't have beliefs if we don't exist?
sorry. So before you said, right, that the property of propriety in properly basic beliefs was synonymous with non-inferential justification, right? And
I'm
you
not saying I
agreed,
disagree with you.
sorry, and you agreed, right, that incorrigible beliefs were one class of self-evident beliefs, right? And you
Yep.
take it that those beliefs are justified,
Yep.
right? So now,
Yep.
are they justified or not?
I believe they are. You seem to have a
Okay,
problem with
great.
justification and the way
No,
I'm using it. So I want to delve into
agree.
your
I don't
worldview.
have a problem with calling constitutively true beliefs justified. If you want to call those beliefs justified, I don't have a problem with that.
But I'm trying.
Sorry. Where I have a problem
Yeah, I know.
is that I don't understand what you could mean by self-evidence or non-inferential justification if you don't mean constitutively true, which is to say incorrigible.
Right. Well, before I asked you about your degree of confidence, right, that the world was not created 5 minutes ago, you said, yeah, I don't believe it. I believe it was not created 5 minutes ago. And I said, well, why do you not doubt that? You didn't seem to have an answer for that. So could you run me through why you don't doubt that? Wouldn't you
I don't
simply have
doubt
to
it
be
because I don't have a
agnostic?
justification for it.
Wouldn't you simply have to just be agnostic about that and not have
No,
any
I never
degree of confidence?
It doesn't follow that one ought to be agnostic if one
Why
doesn't
not?
have a justification.
You simply don't know.
I didn't say I knew. I said I don't believe it, right? If you ask me why I don't believe it, I can't offer you a justification. That means it's a basic belief. And we've been over the idea that there are basic beliefs. The point about basic beliefs is if they're merely basic, they're not justified. But you want to say some basic beliefs are justified. They're just not justified inferentially, right? So we're still trying to understand
Well, that's what would make it proper.
when
Yes.
you're talking about that.
Yes. Do you so would you let me this is a good point we're at. So that example I gave, you would say that basic belief is way more impactful to your belief system than the belief that the sun exists 93 million miles away, right?
It doesn't matter how impactful it is.
Would you say it's a more proper belief than the sun?
No. If propriety means inferential, if propriety means justified, I don't see that it has any more justification than any other basic belief, right? Because basic beliefs that are merely basic don't have any justification at all, as far as I can see. So I'm just trying to understand what you're talking about.
Okay, right. So you say you have a basic belief, right? And you believe to a degree of confidence that it's not true that the universe was created 5 minutes ago, and you don't have a justification, but you believe in that, and that's fine. Okay. But what is the process in which you've determined that belief to be true? Is it self-evident?
Question of determination.
Right, exactly. There's no process, which is what I was trying to say earlier.
So it's not justified.
You believe
justification. Just saying that it's believed without being arrived at through a process doesn't provide a justification for the belief.
What is your definition of a justification in this context?
That there aren't beliefs, right, that one has without being arrived at a process. We're asking,
I know. What is your definition?
What does it mean for them to be justified if not by an inference?
Right. What is your definition of justification in this context?
Justification is something that raises the probability of the proposition being true.
Okay. So yet you have a probability without a justification.
You might hold a belief as being more or less probable, yeah, and you might not have a justification for that for holding it with that probability.
Yeah.
Okay. So what my point was,
that's just a case of a basic belief.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say this whole time, you're freaking out over justification. The reason I believe it is a properly basic belief may hold the same lack of justification ultimately that a different basic belief might have. But what I'm saying is we can distinguish, or at least I can distinguish different basic beliefs that I have of being more proper to my belief system.
And the criterion is that they're simply more important to the rest of your beliefs. Is that the criterion?
It's even more foundational. Yes.
Okay. So the most
So in that
foundation.
way-
So if you look at it, the most foundational beliefs that you have, the most foundational basic beliefs that you have would be called properly basic in your view.
And now I'm not saying it's 100% justified.
Yeah. It's not. But you've just conceded right now that it's. You said it might be just as unjustified as the other basic beliefs, right? Because basic beliefs in our conception, me and Angstreich's conception,
on the core,
could not be called to be justified, right? Unless they're incorrigible.
But we have the reason we have a higher degree of confidence in these basic beliefs, these distinguished basic beliefs. Philosophers call them properly basic. Okay, I didn't just make this fucking word up. Okay,
I'm familiar with the literature around proper basicality, right?
So
and I'm raising an objection to the concept, right? And I'm asking you how you would handle that objection, right? There doesn't seem to be any justification there. So it doesn't seem like that's what propriety could possibly refer to, because it doesn't seem like the types of beliefs you're referring to are justified in any way.
I never said they're I do. The first thing I literally said is they're not justified in the same way we rationally justify our
not in the same way. Not in the same way at all.
Non-inferentially.
Right. I mean, we're back at this point A again.
So we're asking you, where's the justification in these examples?
They're not justified in that way. They're justified in the way that we gain we distinguish these basic beliefs from our other basic beliefs because they're more foundational. Because they're more foundational.
So not because they're justified.
They're more foundational doesn't mean that
you guys have to stop fucking interrupting me every sentence. Okay, I have more to say than just 5 words. The probability, right? They're more detrimental or more foundational as a basic belief, right? And how I determine that, I can't. I mean, I could try to, but I can't really give you the perfect explanation of how one would determine what they consider more important or more foundational basic belief versus others. I tried to give an example, right, between the sun and the distinction between there are other minds outside of our own, right? That it is like you guys see the difference, right? And why?
So let me get this straight. Let me get this straight, because I've understood this conceptual difference that you just pointed out, but I just really want to zero in on this. First, you said that they're justified in some other way, and upon inquiry, we found out that what you really mean by that is that they're more foundational and more impactful to someone's belief system. So you're saying that the different kind of justification we've been trying to get to all this time is really just that they're more important to other beliefs. Is that the kind of justification?
I don't even know if important is more important is the right word.
Okay, more foundational.
Right, they're essentially the core of our basic beliefs.
So then
that's what makes it proper.
Yeah, it's just weird that you're using the word justification because no one else would use the word justification.
If I was to use the word unjustified, I don't think I could think about the world in the same way. If I was to say my most core basic beliefs are unjustified, how then can I try to justify any other beliefs that I have?
If all you mean by properly basic is more foundational, then you could just say they're more fundamental than other basic beliefs that you hold.
Right.
Something like that. And I'm not clear on what that
means. I'm having, right?
I'm not clear on what that means, but let's just say that that's what you mean, right?
Yeah.
Then why waste all our time talking about justification
it's
when
not
you're
wasting.
not talking about that?
It's not wasting. It is. I am in a sense. And I've tried.
Justification.
You guys can't escape the type of justification that you're used to. I'm trying to describe how I'm interpreting justification in this sense, because these types of basic beliefs are. Excuse me. Because these basic beliefs are more foundational to us, and they're the core of our basic beliefs, right?
That makes them more justified.
If I was to say they're ultimately unjustified in the same way my basic belief in the sun being 93 million miles away with never learning that or ever reading about it, just believing it, okay? If I was to say they're unjustified in that same way, then ultimately I have no philosophical reliability for any of my beliefs that stem from those properly basic beliefs to be reasonable or to be justified.
What you're talking about there is merely pragmatic justification, which is not what we were asking about. We were asking about epistemic justification.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
That's why we
I
said
may have
that what,
poorly
that's why,
explained it,
sorry,
but
that's why we said, right, that what we mean by justification is what raises the probability of the proposition being true. Because things
Yeah.
that are pragmatically justified, right, a pragmatic justifier doesn't raise the probability of something being true, right? It's merely justified in that it's useful or valuable to believe it, right? That doesn't mean that there's more reason to think that it is true in virtue of the fact that the reason conduces to it being true, right?
I
Because
agree
those
with that.
reasons don't conduce to its being
I agree with that, but I think there is a sense of epistemic justification too. But I'm trying to explain it in a way that's not the justification that we think of in our everyday lives or in argumentation,
So
right?
Jason,
In a way,
Jason, hold on a second. So I think we've gotten this through, but like just I really need to recapitulate this point. So and you agreed with Angstreich that something being a justification is something that raises the probability of a belief, and then you've explained that what you mean by justification in this context is that it is more foundational than other beliefs, such that changing them would change your entire view of the world and so on. So what I'm really saying now, if you put all these things together in a puzzle, is that the fact that these beliefs are more foundational than other basic beliefs raises in your mind the probability that they are true.
Yeah, that's what I meant by self-evidently justified. Yes.
Okay, so that's what you meant.
That's literally the first thing I said.
They don't raise the probability of it being true.
How can you tell that? How do you know that?
How do they do it?
That's what I said. It's true to me. You asked for a process of how I determine it. I said, I don't know.
I don't mean that for you they appear more probable, right? I'm asking how they raise the probability.
I don't know.
So you don't know.
Does,
okay.
though.
That just means that they
I can't.
don't.
I mean, I know, but I can't explain it.
Okay. So you ultimately cannot explain. So Jason, you ultimately cannot explain how this justification works, right?
Are more true, could be more true for you, or more probably true for you. I don't know how to answer that.
I think we've reached the end of the discussion, really, because I don't think there's any point in
like
really
we don't
going
have the same
forward with
worldview.
this, right?
So how am I supposed to say?
It's not about
experience. Yes, it is, because how am I supposed to say my experience with my properly basic beliefs?
It has nothing to do with that, right? We're simply asking, right, how it is that they raise the probability of a belief being true, right? And if you say, I don't know how they raise the probability of
I've
being
tried
true,
to explain. I don't know what better answer you need.
That just means you don't have a criterion, right? The point is, we're trying to understand what you mean, right, by non-inferential justification. Right? Now we understand how deductive arguments and inductive arguments and abductive arguments justify beliefs, right? We understand how they raise the probability of a belief being true, right? You're just saying there are some beliefs which raise the probability of a proposition being true, which you don't have any explanation for how they do that.
I did have an explanation. You don't accept any of my explanation.
The explanation, Jason, is mysterious because the reason you gave was that the way in which it raises the probability being true is that they're more fundamental. And I've asked you point blank, have you answered yes for this question? That do you believe that so are you saying that when a belief is more fundamental, that raises the probability of it being true? Therefore, its fundamentaliness is kind of a kind of justification in that sense. And you said, yeah, that because a belief is more fundamental than another belief, even a basic belief, one could say that more fundamental belief is more probable to be true because it is more fundamental. And Angstreich is asking you how it is you can justify the proposition that a belief being more fundamental raises its probability of it being true. And you have said that you don't know, and that's fine. We can end the discussion here if you don't know.
Well, I know it's hard to explain, right? Because if first off, Angstreich would need to say yes or no to this. Okay, can you distinguish what I'm saying about some basic beliefs being a core, more foundational than other basic beliefs? Can you make any distinguish between any basic beliefs?
They're distinguished in the sense that just a second. Can I just
that was directed at Jack
to Angstreich? Yeah, my bad. Go ahead, Angstreich.
I mean, maybe that could mean something like they're harder to give up.
What do you mean give up? Why would I have the intention of giving up a basic belief?
We give up basic beliefs all the time.
And we also develop new basic beliefs.
Yeah. So maybe what
Yeah.
you mean by more fundamental is that it's harder to give up.
If I give for 3 to 4 examples of basic belief, like when you think of a basic belief, do you think of it on all the same degree, like all the same level? Like there can be no more foundational basic beliefs?
If by more foundational you mean that it would be harder to give up without doing violence to your other beliefs, right? That would require more revision of your entire belief system. I can make sense of that idea.
Right, like the 2 examples I gave. Would you consider those more foundational than other basic beliefs?
I might, if that's what
so
you
you
mean
can
by foundational.
so you can make a distinction between the 2, right?
Yeah, but I don't see how
Okay.
that offers a justification. I mean, an epistemic.
Well, let's start small. That offers a distinction. This distinction may be they're more primary, or they're more foundational, they're more core to all of your basic beliefs. Now, you would probably say ones that are corrigible, right? Are you can have some type of justification for, and therefore they are the most important, correct?
Yeah, but that's not answering the question.
Well, I'm just saying we can determine degrees of basic beliefs. Okay. Would you consider the belief that you exist through its necessity a properly basic belief?
If by properly basic you just mean justified, I don't have a problem
Mm,
with somebody understanding
It's degrees of
beliefs
justification.
as justified. Right?
It's degrees of justification, right? So when I mean, I guess here's what I'm confused about in this conversation. For me, it seems like you're going from, okay, yes, this belief that I have through necessity that I can seem to justify, it's either justified or it's unjustified. There's no like degrees of confidence or no degrees of justification. It's just either justified in the way I understand justification, or it's not justified. And I don't agree with that. That's what I'm saying.
I don't understand. Look, we're just trying to understand how a belief.
So if you have, let's go off your attitude, or not your attitude, but your example towards this, right? If you were to say, well, I don't really know what you mean, Jsut, by a foundational belief, but yeah, let's say a belief that would be more of a detriment or be more damaging to my other beliefs, therefore it's more important or more foundational. Okay, that belief, would you say is more justified than your other basic beliefs in any way?
Not epistemically.
Oh, okay. So you're just saying that they're more. There's no reason, even though you can distinguish the importance or the foundational difference between the 2, that there's still no reason you should believe in that more than your other basic beliefs.
No epistemic reason.
Okay. Well, I guess we disagree to disagree then.
It's not a question of us agreeing to disagree, right? We've asked you to give us an account of how those kinds of beliefs that you're citing provide an epistemic justification. And you don't have an account, right?
Right,
so
because
we agree that you don't have an account. There's no agreeing to disagree. We absolutely agree that you don't have a fucking clue how those things can confer any epistemic justification whatsoever on those beliefs. So we're agreeing. We're not agreeing to disagree.
We are agreeing to disagree.
That at the outset, right, when you claim those beliefs are non-inferentially epistemically justified, you don't have a fucking account of how they raise the probability of those beliefs being true 1 iota. It's not agreeing to disagree. We absolutely agree. Now, if you disagree, then tell us, right, how they raise the probability of those beliefs being true.
Yeah. So if my basic belief that the sun's 93 million miles away is disproven, okay, I move on. Okay, I understand that was a basic belief that was extremely unjustified, right?
I don't know what you mean by extremely unjustified.
Okay, let me get to that. If I find out that I don't actually exist, rather I live in a simulation, right? That is like you don't even know no one even knows what to do in that case, right? Well, I don't know. I don't even know what to think anymore. Okay, am I even thinking? If I'm to find out that no other conscious minds outside my own, I start to wonder if I have a conscious mind. What does this even mean? It's more detrimental to our
That's
entire
pragmatic justification.
beliefs.
We've already been over that.
So because it is foundational, and because it is so important that it's true, I believe it more to be true than some of my other basic beliefs because of my existence. That belief is distinguished.
We've been over this. That's pragmatic justification. You're just wasting our time.
No, because
right?
you're saying pragmatic justification.
We're not disagreeing that those are pragmatically
You're saying
justified.
you're
right?
saying a
The
pragmatic
question
justification
is,
doesn't
how
give
are
you
they
any more reason
epistemically
to believe it to
justified?
be true, and I disagree with that. I believe my
I
more
don't
foundational
care
basic
whether
beliefs,
you
which are my
disagree or
properly
not.
basic beliefs, to be
Look,
more true
I'm not
than my other
asking
ones.
you your opinion, okay? The fact that you disagree means nothing, right? Unless you can give an account of what you're saying, and you can't, right?
You're saying,
sorry, your claim is, right, or your claim was, right, that there are beliefs, right, which are non-inferentially but epistemically justified, right? And it turns out you don't have a fucking clue how they're epistemically justified, because when you're asked to explain how are they epistemically justified, it turns out you're giving a pragmatic justification, right?
Okay.
And we've already established we're not talking about pragmatic justification. So why are you wasting your time? Go back to the books, figure it out. If you think there's really something there, come back when you know what you're talking about. Otherwise, you're just wasting our time.
And yet you're still here yelling at me and talking to me.
I'm just trying to understand why you keep
and I'm trying to get you to understand. You were saying your position is that it is either justified or unjustified. There is no degrees of justification in terms of epistemic.
Of course, there are degrees. Some things, right, have greater probability than others, right?
Yeah.
That's how inductive arguments work, right?
Right.
That's how abductive arguments work. I'm
Thank
not seeing
you.
I'm not seeing the relevance of any of that to you giving an account of how non-inferentially justified beliefs, right, have epistemic justification.
Okay. Give an example, right, of a degree of justification using abduction that is non-inferential. Can you do that? I'm seeing this from your perspective as black and white, right?
Those are
you just said it's not black and white.
Those are inferential justifications. We're not talking about that.
Okay. And an inferential justification could not be an axiomatic belief, correct?
That's right.
Right. So therefore, you're saying it's impossible for an axiomatic belief or a properly basic belief to have any justification at all.
If we're talking about epistemic justification, I don't understand how it could be the case that you could raise the probability of that proposition being true without appealing to an inference. That's what we've been asking you to explain.
Right. So did I appeal to an inference when I said that it comports to my reality, right? And it's detrimental, or it's
pragmatic justification. We've been over that.
But how? So you're saying that it's irrational for me, if it's true that it's simply pragmatic. You're saying it's irrational for me to hold that it has pragmatic justification, and then from that believe with a higher degree of confidence.
I'm not saying that it's irrational.
So where am I believing with a higher degree of confidence that it is true, probability wise? What am I missing, Jack? If it's
what I'm saying is you haven't offered anything but a pragmatic justification for those beliefs, right? And so if your claim is that
you're
beliefs
claiming it's impossible.
If your claim is that they are nonetheless epistemically justified,
yes,
right? Non-inferentially so, we don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Okay. And your claim is that it's impossible.
I don't have to make that claim. I'm merely asking
you did.
I'm merely asking what the fuck it means to say that a belief is non-inferentially but epistemically justified. I don't have any fucking clue what that is.
Because if it's unjust, I've tried to explain this. If it's unjust, if I say it's not justified because I don't have a justification for it, therefore my most foundational beliefs are unjustified. Therefore, why should any of my other beliefs be justified? from that
That has
properly
no
basic belief.
relevance to the question.
It
That's just
absolutely does.
I
pragmatic
understand what
justification.
justification is.
That's pragmatic, Jason. That is not epistemic. That is pragmatic.
Right. So if I hold to a higher degree of confidence that my most foundational basic beliefs are true and self-evidently true, and I do believe that, right?
Jason,
Then
Angstreich is claiming that.
It gives me a better reason to believe my other beliefs are true, right?
Jason, Angstreich is claiming that the kind of justification what you're talking about, meaning pragmatic justification, doesn't raise the probability of a belief being true. Therefore, it is not the same as epistemic justification. So it might be the case indeed that your beliefs are pragmatically justified, but that doesn't tell you anything about whether or not it is more likely that they're true, right? They're just pragmatic.
But he's claiming that a basic belief cannot be epistemically justified.
Quite.
I'm saying that
I'm claiming that mine is, and I'm simply having a hard time explaining how it is. I don't even know if anyone can account for that.
Explaining how it is. You're explaining how it's pragmatically justified. We're not asking
Right.
you how it's pragmatically justified.
So, but are you saying that you don't hold? I mean, I'm just listen. I may not have an explanation of how I believe it's epistemically justified, but are you saying that none of your basic beliefs are justified at all?
I don't understand what it would mean for them to be epistemically justified if they were basic.
If epistemically justified, you're saying it raises the probability of one basic belief over another being more likely true.
Yeah,
do you believe that any of your basic
understand
beliefs are more likely true than your other basic beliefs? Do you believe that?
I don't understand how any basic belief could have any epistemic justification.
Okay, then no. You have no way to distinguish them. You're saying that none of my basic beliefs.
Pragmatic. I can distinguish them on the basis of pragmatic justifications.
Right.
Right.
But
that's
what
not
you're
what we're
saying.
talking about.
Right. So So Jack Angstreich, what you're saying is that I have basic beliefs, but none of my basic beliefs, I don't believe any of them to be more true than others. Is that what you're saying?
Not epistemically so, but rather pragmatically so. That's the only idea.
And what does pragmatically so have to do with probability? You said it doesn't. Therefore, then no, your answer is no. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't think any of your basic beliefs are more true than others.
You don't. The point is, when you say why you hold a belief to be more probable, right? If it's a basic belief, right? You can't offer an epistemic justification for the different degrees of probability, right? That's the point.
Okay, so you're saying you do, you just can't explain it.
For that.
Okay, so you're saying that you do have basic beliefs that you believe are more true or more likely to be true than others, but yet you can't justify that. That's what you're saying, correct?
I'm saying that's what it would mean to have basic beliefs.
Okay, right. But do you have basic beliefs that you feel are more likely true than others?
I don't have to take a position on that, right? I could be a coherent.
I'm just asking you a genuine question.
I don't have a position, right, on epistemic. I don't have a position on.
You don't have any basic beliefs that you feel are more true than others?
I'm not sure that I have any basic beliefs at all, right? The point is, if I had some.
Is that true?
If I had some basic beliefs, right? The point is that I might hold some.
Look, he's shutting down. It's pointless to continue. It's just like when he asks like, is that true? Deep side, all this stuff. But look,
I'm glad you're a psychologist.
Maybe I'll give it a shot. Jsut. So when we have his ultimate beliefs, what it means is that there's no further justification epistemically. You understand?
Yes, in the sense that we say it's ultimately justified like our other beliefs are. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, do we have degrees of confidence that this basic belief is more likely true than my other basic belief? If we can't distinguish that at all, we are left with a fucking horizon of basic beliefs that are fucking irrelevant to anything because we don't believe any of them are more foundational than any other ones.
It doesn't matter what the degrees of confidence are, right? That's not the issue. We're not asking, are some held more confidently than others, and why, right? What we're asking is, if it's not justified by any inference, how does it have epistemic justification at all, right?
maybe you're right. Maybe I'll have to look more into that. That's possible. What I'm saying is that when I'm using the word justification, I'm purposely not using it in the way that we epistemically justify our other basic
and that's
beliefs
just
or
semantic
other beliefs. I'm
dispute.
sorry,
I'm
but
sorry for
rather,
the confusion. That's just a semantic dispute. I'm sorry for yelling at you, right?
okay,
I was just trying to understand if you had an account for how those beliefs could be epistemically justified. It
What-
sounds like you're
right.
conceding you don't have that account, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong
Well,
with not
I said
having
earlier, I
it.
don't think anyone does.
That's
But what I'm
fine.
saying,
I agree with you. I don't think anybody does either. That's fine. If you don't have it, that's fine. I apologize, right? We were just misunderstanding one another, right? I merely wanted to clarify that if that's what you had in mind, that there was epistemic justification, what your account was. If you're conceding you don't have that worked out yet, that's totally fine, right? You might be right. There might be a way to give an account of justification that's non-inferential, right? I'm not ruling that out. Somebody could make an argument that could convince me of that, right? So that's fine. I just wanted to get clarity on that point. It sounds like we have that clarity.
right? And what I
Yeah.
mean by justification, right, is it seems to be more justified to me. There's layers of justification, like you were saying.
Yeah,
And
that's fine.
even though it's right, it's when I say self-evidently justified, you say, "What's your justification for that?" I don't think I have one. It just seems to be the case, right?
Okay, I'm not disputing that.
Okay, well,
Great. So it looks like both agree.
Yeah,
There's a happy
Kosti.
ending after all.
I apologize. I'm a powder keg, so someday I'm going to be kicked out of this server, but it's not, it's just please take it with a grain of salt.
yeah. I mean, I
Cool.
already told you the second time we talked that, it's whatever. I don't really take it personally.
Kosti, could you not tell people that I'm a fash, as you put it?